The trenches were an abyss, a nightmare from which there was no waking. World War I, a grotesque carnival of industrialized slaughter where empires gambled with the lives of millions. This was a war of attrition, reshaping landscapes with explosives, air heavy with poison. Join us now as we descend into the mud and madness, as we exhume the engines of destruction that defined the Great War. Imagine the Western Front, a desolate labyrinth of trenches stretching from the English Channel to the Swiss Alps. A soldier hunkered down in the mud, rainwater dripping from his helmet. He clutches his rifle, its wooden stock slick with sweat and fear. This was the standard infantry weapon of the Great War, the bolt-action rifle. Names like Lee Enfield, Mauser-Gewehr 98, and Springfield M1903 echoed across the killing fields. Each rifle, a meticulously engineered instrument of death, capable of spitting out 15 rounds a minute in the hands of a trained soldier. But these were not mere statistics. Each pull of the trigger represented a life potentially extinguished. The casualty figures are staggering, almost beyond comprehension. Millions of men, their bodies ripped apart by high-velocity lead. These rifles, while crude by today's standards, were the primary tools of death in the trenches. They transformed battlefields into abattoirs, leaving an entire generation scarred. The bolt-action rifle was only one instrument in the orchestra of death. For sheer industrialized killing power, one weapon reigned supreme, the machine gun. Imagine the staccato bark of a Maxim gun, its crew feeding belts of ammunition into its insatiable maw. Each burst of fire, a hailstorm of lead capable of cutting down waves of attacking infantry. The machine gun was the embodiment of the impersonal, industrialized nature of 20th century warfare. The Battle of the Somme, 1916. British forces went over the top, their objective to break the German lines. What they encountered was nothing short of a massacre. German machine guns mowed down the British attackers in droves. The casualties on that single day, over 57,000 British soldiers killed or wounded. The machine gun, more than any other weapon, came to define the static, attritional nature of the Western Front. The horrors of World War I extended far beyond the front lines. This was a war where entire landscapes were reshaped by explosives. Imagine the deafening roar of a battery of French 75s, their barrels flashing in the gloom. These were massive, precision-engineered instruments of destruction capable of lobbing high-explosive shells for miles. Trenches were blown to pieces in an instant. Men were vaporized, buried alive, or driven mad by the constant bombardment. One British officer described the aftermath of an artillery barrage as the world turned inside out. The constant shelling created a psychological strain that gnawed at the sanity of even the toughest soldier. The artillery, with its impersonal, indiscriminate violence, came to symbolize the terrifying new face of war. It was a weapon that turned battlefields into moonscapes, leaving an indelible scar on the human psyche. The devil's breath gas warfare and the descent into barbarity. World War I was not just a conflict of machines and explosives, it was a war where the very air itself turned traitor poison gas. Imagine the eerie silence after an artillery bombardment. Then a hissing sound followed by a strange yellowish-green cloud drifting across no man's land. This was chlorine gas, one of the first chemical weapons deployed in warfare. The effects of chlorine gas were nothing short of horrific. It attacked the eyes, throat, and lungs, causing excruciating pain, blindness, and ultimately, a slow, agonizing death by asphyxiation. Those who survived were often left with permanent lung damage. As the war dragged on, so did the depravity of chemical warfare. Phosgene, mustard gas, tear gas, each new agent more insidious than the last. The use of poison gas shocked even the most hardened veterans. It left an indelible stain on the human conscience, a chilling reminder of the depths of depravity to which mankind could sink. Iron behemoths, the dawn of the tank. The year is 1916. The Western Front, mired in a bloody stalemate, seems to stretch on endlessly. But on the horizon, a new terror emerges, the tank. Imagine the terror of German soldiers as they witness for the first time these lumbering behemoths. The first tanks, primitive by today's standards, were mechanical nightmares. Slow, unreliable, prone to breakdowns, they nevertheless struck terror into the hearts of the enemy. The British, pioneers in tank warfare, named their new weapon after water tanks. Armed with machine guns and even cannons, these early tanks could cross trenches, crush barbed wire, and unleash a devastating hail of fire on enemy positions. The psychological impact of the tank was perhaps its greatest weapon. The sight of these iron behemoths, seemingly unstoppable, was enough to break the morale of even the most seasoned troops. The tank, born in the trenches of World War I, would go on to revolutionize warfare. Knights of the Sky aerial warfare takes flight. The horrors of World War I were not confined to the trenches below. High above the mud and blood, a new breed of warrior emerged, the fighter race. Imagine the roar of engines as fragile biplanes take to the skies. These were the flimsy chariots of the air, piloted by young men who dueled thousands of feet above the earth. Armed with machine guns synchronized to fire through their propeller blades, these pilots dueled amidst the clouds. Bombers, too, took to the skies, raining death and destruction from above. Cities, once considered safe havens, now found themselves vulnerable to attack from the air. Aerial warfare, born in the crucible of World War I, would forever change the nature of conflict. It was a harbinger of a future where air power would play a decisive role in shaping the destiny of nations. While the trenches of the Western Front became synonymous with the horrors of World War I, a different kind of conflict raged at sea. Imagine the bone-jarring roar as massive guns unleashed their deadly payloads. These were the dreadnoughts, the floating fortresses that ruled the waves. The Battle of Jutland, fought in 1916 between the British and German navies, was the largest naval battle of the war. Over 250 warships clashed in the North Sea. The air vibrated with the thunder of naval artillery as these behemoths exchanged broadsides. The Battle of Jutland, while tactically inconclusive, was a strategic victory for the British. The age of the dreadnought marked a turning point in naval warfare. World War I witnessed the introduction of a weapon that seemed to embody the very essence of hellfire, the flamethrower. Imagine the terror of a soldier as he witnesses a jet of fire erupt from the enemy trenches. This was the flamethrower, a weapon that unleashed a torrent of liquid fire. First employed by the German army, flamethrowers were used primarily to clear enemy trenches. The sight of men engulfed in flames was enough to break the spirit of even the bravest soldier. The use of flamethrowers, however, was not without its risks. The flammable liquids they employed were notoriously unstable. The very nature of the weapon made it one of the most feared and reviled weapons of the war. The flamethrower left an indelible mark on the psyche of those who witnessed its horrors. In the charnel house of World War I, there existed a more intimate form of violence, the bayonet. Imagine the terror of a soldier trapped in the confines of a trench as enemy soldiers swarm over the parapet, their bayonets fixed. The bayonet, a relic of a bygone era of warfare, found new life in the trenches of the Western Front. It was a weapon of last resort, employed when ammunition ran low or when the enemy was close enough to touch. Bayonet charges were a testament to the desperation and barbarity of trench warfare. The psychological impact of bayonet fighting was profound. One soldier described a bayonet charge as being in a slaughterhouse. The bayonet served as a grim reminder that even in an age of industrialized warfare, some things never changed. The weapons of World War I, from the humble bolt-action rifle to the monstrous dreadnought, left an indelible mark on the world. They transformed warfare from a clash of armies into a conflict of industrialized slaughter. The echoes of that conflict continue to resonate today. The weapons may have evolved, but the capacity for violence remains a chilling reminder of the dark side of human nature. As we emerge from the abyss of World War I, we are left to grapple with the legacy of these weapons and strive for a future where such horrors are never repeated.